I think it was a mistake.
With Trudeau, it's always narcissism, confusion with a leaven of malevolence. And I'm sure that was at work here. I know he's no friend of Tucker Carlson.
Or literally stupidity.
The desperation and complete meltdown that the Liberals are having following Pierre Poilievre absolutely destroying everything that they thought perhaps they had going for them, and just completely calling them out, being so factual, so honest, so true.
Excuse me, the Canadian people are not obliged, 41 million people are not obliged to wait around while this party sorts out its shit. Like, these guys could have got rid of Trudeau a year and a half ago. They knew he was a disaster then. And now they say, well, we're low in the polls, so we have to get rid of him. Now, you didn't care when he was just depriving single mothers of food for their kids, or doubling housing costs, or unleashing crime in neighborhoods across the country. But now you're really concerned about getting rid of him because your poll numbers are down and you want to keep your job. Sorry, that's not a good reason to paralyze the entire country, in the face, by the way, of a major negotiation with the incoming U.S. president, who enters with a massive and powerful mandate, and a man who has proven that he can spot weakness from a mile away.
And what do Liberals do when they panic? Well, they blame Russia, they start talking about women's rights, and they lie. And we're going to dive into all of the latest Trudeau team and supporter meltdowns today, following Pierre Poilievre's interview on Jordan Peterson. And this one MP in particular, what she posted actually led to a threat. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Like the video, and let's continue this conversation in the comments down below.
And their lives are trapped. They, young people say, look, okay, I went through, I got an education, I work nonstop, and I have made the calculation that there is no mathematical path for me to own a house. It's just not possible. In Toronto here, for example, if you take the average income and the average house price, it would take you 29 years to save up for a down payment. So, if you're
for a down
payment, not to pay it off, forget paying it off. And so if you're a young woman who's got a biological clock, obviously, well, do the math. You start off at, let's say you're 25. Well, you're going to be in your 50s before you can afford the average house. So how are you ever going to have kids? That's the picture of the youth. Then there's the kind of middle-aged people who do have kids already, and they're terrified of the dangers in the streets. I mean, our streets are just being overtaken by drugs and gangsterism and other dangers, and they want safety again. And then you have business owners that are saying there's just no way to continue to compete in Canada. We have to look at moving, and that means the next 200 jobs we create is going to be in Ohio or Florida or some other place than Canada. That's the kind of overview that I get. The good news, though, is that people do now have some hope. They think that things can be turned around, and they have clearly and correctly diagnosed the problem, which is entirely political. There is no physical, geographic reason why Canada should struggle to supply people with great opportunities of home ownership and family formation. In fact, we should be the richest country in the world. And people increasingly know that, and they know that if we make the right, albeit difficult, political decisions, that they will once again be able to do as their parents did, which is to say, get a house, start a family, live in a safe neighborhood, raise their kids with good traditional values.
I know, as you're watching this, you're probably thinking, how on earth could anybody slander what he is saying here? How is anything that he's saying bad? And how on earth are the Liberals going to spin this? So we're going to keep watching just a little bit longer, and then you're in for a real treat of what the Liberal government posted, what Jagmeet Singh posted, and what a few other grifters have posted. And it is absolutely unhinged.
That's another thing I'm finding, is that a lot of people are really getting back to those values that we were told were unfashionable. They want, young people today, they want to have families.
Yeah, well, there's been a real conservative swing, especially among young men. Well, no wonder, because they've been demonized for, 30 straight years for every aspect of their masculinity, from their play preferences to their proclivity to destroy the planet with their ambition.
My rallies were overwhelmingly populated with youth, which is not normal for conservatives.
Right.
And the reason is because in your youth, of course, you as you write it, young people want to have the adventure of their lives. They want to go into the wilderness and earn a living and bring it home and
do
raise
something
kids
responsible
and have a purpose that's bigger than just short-termism. And I think, 20 years ago, the socialists would go to university campuses and say, vote for us and we'll let you be a kid forever. We'll give you free stuff and you'll never have to get a job. And that was very temporarily popular across the Western world. But then young people woke up and found out this was not a utopia, it was a total dystopia. And that all the things that they really valued and wanted for their lives were impossible when they were being borne down upon by this massive state. They've learned that help is the sunny side of control.
It is something, a realization that many people, doesn't really matter your age, did in fact have. That, yes, it sounds really nice to have a government who wants to offer you all these programs and whatever, but then when you start to realize the reality, which is that your bank account is not what it used to be, your buying power is not what it used to be, you can no longer afford to do the things that you once could, the things that once made you feel like a free, successful citizen. Your hard work paid off, you got a reward. When we all started to realize that the implementation of these programs resulted in more and more government assistance needed and less freedom for Canadians to do as they see fit with what they have, because what they have has absolutely dwindled and has no value anymore like it once did. A lot of people realized that, yeah, in fact, these social programs, a government being really involved in our social lives, it sounded nice until you got the reality of it. And the reality of it was, in fact, less freedom and more control.
Why is the leader of the Conservative Party not getting a security clearance?
Because this Prime Minister will not gag me the way he's gagging his 24...
Now, what do leftists do when they're backed into a corner and they start to realize that we see right through them? Well, they fearmonger. It's one of Trudeau's favorite tactics to use. And this one MP in particular, what she posted actually led to a threat from Jordan Peterson. So Ikra Khalid, probably pronounced that wrong, don't care, said, did Russia fund a recent PP interview? I guess he will never know because he refuses to get his security clearance. There's something about this whole security clearance debacle that is just so laughably outrageous. I could actually pull out my hair. It makes me mad how frequently people use that as an argument against Pierre Poilievre, especially when you consider all of the security clearances he has undergone. And you consider the fact that when Justin Trudeau was brought into Parliament, when he won as leader, when he won as Prime Minister, this security clearance he didn't have. He didn't have it until after he had already won, because it's one that he had introduced afterwards, and he's been using it as this ploy against all of the other parties, and it's just so outrageous. But this comes largely after this testimony, and on top of Jordan Peterson's threat, which I will read, there is also another tidbit from a past interview that Peterson did with his daughter that really sheds light on exactly what it was that Justin Trudeau said and how that whole system works. And it was something I didn't know before either. I always assumed somebody says something under oath, that must mean that it's true, right? No, very wrong. So here's what Justin Trudeau said that started all of this chaos about Tucker Carlson and Jordan Peterson and Lauren Southern and blah, blah, blah.
And as I said, we've recently seen that RT is currently funding bloggers and other YouTube personalities of the right, such as Jordan Peterson, other names that are well known, and Tucker Carlson as well, in order to amplify messages that are destabilizing democracies.
To his knowledge, it is fact that Russia is funding both Tucker Carlson and Jordan Peterson to spread propaganda. And to have a comment like this, of course, coming from a Liberal MP, Jordan Peterson responded back saying, "Dear Miss Khalid, watch it seriously." And the reason why is brilliantly described in this clip.
Anyways, I think Trudeau got confused because that's his permanent state of being. And, he's just the prime minister and the leader of a G7 country, and it was just a parliamentary committee. And so I have no legal recourse. And so he can basically say whatever he wants, and that is what he said. Me and Tucker Carlson, Russian agents, so...
We did contact lawyers about it. 'Cause we're like, can we sue?
Yeah.
No, you can't sue. Not if he's
No,
under
there's
oath.
nothing you can do.
So apparently this happens quite often because they're under oath, so people trust it more
Yeah.
because it's under oath.
Yeah.
And so what people say is, say it when you're not under oath.
Yeah.
As soon as you say it when you're not under oath, you're able to be sued.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, I think,
I think it
with,
was a
with
mistake,
Trudeau,
though.
it's always narcissism, confusion with a leaven of malevolence. And I'm sure that was at work here. I know he's no friend of
or
Tucker Carlson.
literally stupidity.
Yes.
Right-wing people like Tucker and Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Like, it could have been that much thought.
Yeah. Yes.
Which is
Yeah.
terrifying.
Well, that's for sure. That's for sure. So I'm afraid the fortune in rubles that is supposed to be coming my way has failed to make itself manifest. There isn't much else to be said about that except that it's exactly what you'd expect from him. It's exactly the depth of analysis, exactly the careless reputation savaging. It's exactly the narcissism. It's precisely the lack of depth in terms of analysis. It's everything you'd expect from Mr. Taylor Swifty.
So for anybody in the Liberal Party to be saying that is just so stupid. But hey, I would not put it past them. It's also really important to note, and it's shocking, truly, the amount of people that hold things that are said under oath, that hold these accusations like, oh, we've received intelligence of foreign interference from Russia towards the Conservative Party, which is funny because actually a lot of the intelligence that they did receive was for the People's Party of Canada, not for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party of Canada. The information that can be used to start some of these investigations, by the way, a lot of people I think are very misinformed, thinking that, oh, well, if there's this big investigation and they're testifying and talking about it, that must be because they have some great intel. No, in reality, oftentimes that intel could be something as small as a rumor. It could be as small as a screenshot of an accusation found on X, found on another social media platform. Like, it's not valid evidence to suggest that something has happened. A lot of times these are actually just rumors where it's like, oh, well, yeah, I heard somebody talking and it kind of sounded like, maybe they had Russian interference in that decision that they made. And boom, that's enough then to say what they do say and to slander people the way that they have. And look at how well that propaganda has done for them, truly. Plus, let's also not forget, if there was a very real threat, something of validity, and this wasn't just a political talking point, Justin Trudeau is the leader. Justin Trudeau has all the power. He has all the names. He has all of the information out there. If there was something that was actually so egregious that it could wipe the Conservatives off the map, why wouldn't he release the information there? People say, oh, well, it's because, there's different clauses and there's security and it'd be a breach and blah, blah, blah. No, you're the leader of the country. If there is a very serious threat, even if you don't tell the public, you're certainly going to do whatever you possibly can behind the scenes to remove certain members or speak with them privately. But he hasn't. I wonder why he hasn't. Could it be because this is a non-issue? Now, after watching the Pierre Poilievre episode that Jordan Peterson released, the Liberal Party of Canada was so desperate because they quite literally had nothing. They had nothing on him. Every single thing that he said was true. Everything that he said was hopeful. They had no leg to stand on. So what did they do then to dismiss and divide over Pierre Poilievre being a part of this interview? Well, the Liberal Party of Canada posted, Pierre Poilievre just went on a podcast sponsored by an anti-abortion group. New year, same anti-choice conservatives. Which is hilarious because Pierre Poilievre, when he was running for leadership, he was running as somebody who was pro-choice.
He said he's not going to legislate it, introduce it, pass it. So what part's not clear?
That's his government. There are ways that you can have private members' bill that are introduced as well, and the risk is still there. He voted against Morgentaler back in 2008 as person. I mean, he is, in every sense, that caucus and that leader has made women wonder about the risk that they're going to be taking with this leader. And I want him to come out and unequivocally say that they do everything to defend a women's right to choose, that they will not allow their members to come forward with private members' bills and put forward bills that suggest that a fetus is a person, which is a backdoor way of, again, addressing this issue.
Is it he was here? The Harper government had 10 years. I know you weren't here. Many of us were. 10 years in power. They had 4 years as a majority, didn't move one bit. And they had private members who wanted to do things and do things. Guys, you are all 30 points down the polls. I'm looking at some of you will not get reelected if there was an election this fall. This is the most cynical play to just throw the abortion scare tactic. Would you like to respond to that observation?
Absolutely. It's
Please.
not a scare tactic. We've seen what's happened in the States. Do people really think Roe versus Wade would have been overturned? Do we think what was happening there was going to happen? I've been in the women's movement for over 50 years. It is not a scare tactic. Things are going backwards, not only in Canada, but around the world. And these are real risks for Canadians. We need to know very clearly that that party, policies put forth at the convention, individual members are not going to introduce things because we do not want to go the same way as the United States. So it is not a scare tactic. It is a very strong concern. And I may not have been here then, but I was other places working on women's rights, okay? So do not use that as a reason why it's not a scare tactic.
Last question.
Let's just put it back the other way. The government hasn't also legislated to protect abortions either, right? So why doesn't your government introduce legislation to make it harder for that to get rolled back if there is a conservative government?
You do not want to legislate woman's body. You do not legislate woman's body. That is not, you make sure that you have access to abortion. You don't want to legislate anybody's body, particularly women's.
Even if that is to protect the right to choose, like you're calling
No,
to do?
you don't want to legislate your ovaries, your uterus. No, that is not the way that you protect women's rights.
But these liberals, they're so desperate that they're going after Preborn, who is one of the companies that advertises on the Daily Wire, a company of which, by the way, Pierre Poilievre has no association to. They aren't even a Canadian company, and a company of which Pierre Poilievre has no say in who is advertising on the Daily Wire's network. And then as a typical coattail rider, Jagmeet Singh also posts, once again, the Conservatives and Jordan Peterson are coming for women's rights. Oh my God, this is so embarrassing, dude. This fall, Poilievre and the Conservatives voted against abortion again. And now this. No matter who you supported in the past, this time stand with us. If every one of us who believes in the right to choose fights back, we can stop them.
Poilievre government would not introduce or pass legislation restricting abortion.
Stop them from what? Stop them from what? Because Jagmeet Singh, God, I cannot wait till there's a community note on this. Because, yeah, there was no votes at all about anything that had to do with abortion this fall. Just going to throw that out there. Not a single bill came in where abortion was of an issue. And Pierre Poilievre has said in the past, as I already told you, that nope, not an issue whatsoever. This is just fear-mongering. It's what they do when they're scared.
Is the member going to take away a woman's right to choose if they ever, and I hope it never happens, becomes a government in this country?
Honorable Leader of the Official Opposition.
No.
So here's the thing. Back in 2008, 2010, 2012, 2016, and 2023, Conservative MPs, including Pierre Poilievre, in some instances did vote in favor of certain bills that could be interpreted as reopening the debate on abortion. One of these bills was a situation of which a woman who was expecting to have a child soon was murdered. So they were looking to have harsher penalties on criminals who injure and harm knowingly pregnant women. That bill, by the way, was also backed by that woman's family after they lost their daughter and their future grandchild that they loved and were very excited to meet. And I just think it is so shameful and disgraceful that the Liberal Party and the NDP party has used that bill as a way to further divide and bring up absolute nonsense about the Conservative Party, because a woman's family who is in immense mourning, losing 2 children. Really, it's not like this woman was planning to not have a child. She was looking forward to it, and she was killed. And her family wanted more justice than what the law had previously offered for the fact that this person took 2 family members from them. Sure, one of them may have not been born, but still, do we not want to have some of the strictest crime laws imaginable for murderers? Really? And now that bill is used as a talking point? And then the other one that is always brought up is the fact that there's this one MP, her name's Kathy Wagenthal, and she is very, very pro-life. Why? Because she's religious. Well, Mr. Singh, as an example, aren't you Sikh, or don't you have a lot of friends in the Sikh community, the Muslim community? Yeah, a lot of those people are very much pro-life as well. Justin Trudeau has had plenty of interactions with all sorts of people from churches and all of that stuff. Guess what? Yep, religious people, very devout religious people, are often very much pro-life. And in this country, we do have freedom of religion, do we not? So yeah, the fact that you're going to have religious MPs who say that, yeah, I'm very pro-life, and as a free country who is expressing my freedom of expression and my freedom of religion, I'm going to introduce these private members' bills. And one of these bills that Wagenthal was a part of was one that had to do with definitively studying when human life begins. And here's the thing, I'm not somebody who is super hardcore pro-life. I think, yeah, I love families, I love babies, I want everybody to have the best families imaginable. I wish our society was having more babies than we currently are. But having said that, I'm not you, and it's not my life, and it's not my job and duty on this planet to judge you in any way, shape, or form. I don't like when abortions are used as birth control. I think most people don't. Along with over 60% of pro-choicers, I also don't agree with the fact that, you know, there's full-term abortions. I don't like that one bit. I am all for there being some sort of a gestational period of which you can no longer get one because, yeah, it's pretty gosh darn clear what you're doing at that point. I've had plenty of friends that have had abortions themselves. I know how traumatic that situation can be. I know how hard of a decision that is to make. And you'll pay the piper with whoever your God is or whoever your nothing is, if that's what you believe in at the end of the day. That's not for me to decide. But I also just can't even believe the fact that the pro-choicers are so pro-choice that they're not even remotely curious about when life actually begins. Like, I'm like, isn't it kind of crazy that it's 2024 and human beings are still debating when our life begins? Like, that's wild to me. It would be cool to at least know definitively what that answer is. And regardless of that answer, if that's something that you don't care about and the abortion thing is still going to be there, well then, okay, cool. At least now we know, though. I mean, yeah, that's like one of the most basic pieces of scientific knowledge that you could have. And now we definitively know. But pro-choicers are so pro-abortion that they don't even want to know the answer of when their life began, which I just think is crazy.